Hi everyone, it's Vaishali from the Caregena Podcast, and here I am today with Parag, who is a technologist and social entrepreneur.
Hi everyone, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Vaishali. This is a great podcast which features many different people from all walks of life, and I'm so happy to be here to share my part of it.
Thank you. So my first question is, what specific goals and aspirations drive the service work you engage in?
So service doesn't have a specific goal usually, right? See, service is just an attitude. It's just an attitude of let me be useful. Yeah. So in the morning when you wake up and you pray, you just have to say, use me, be me, right? You tell the universe that let me be somehow useful to the whole world, right? And I think that's such a beautiful thing to take back, right? Um, the way it started for me was that it started with a personal experience, right? So I was going through school, I was going through a lot of stress. Back in India, it's very competitive, right? And there's also stress at home and things like that. Typical middle class, upbringing. And I wanted a way out somewhere. I wanted to feel happy like a child. And that's exactly what was written on a poster that I saw somewhere. And that just triggered me and said, okay, I have to do this, right? I want to experience this. And for some reason, there was this strong urge that usually is not there. So if somebody tells me, no, you're not getting it, then I would say, okay, no worries. But this one, I was so into it. I don't know why before even doing it. I just wanted to do it. So I just like literally cried and I told my mom, give me my piggy bank. I'll take all the money from there and I'll just go take this course, right? So somehow there was a poll. And once I did the program, I cannot say I was impressed, mainly because I was still in that spaced out mode, right? Just trying to figure out what exactly happened, right? So the course in question was the Art of Living basic course, as it was called earlier. It was about 6 days, January 4th through January 9th of 2000. So that's when I did my first program. And I remember coming out of it, I felt really fresh. And then the instructor had said, oh, you have to practice for 40 days. And I did that. And I did that very innocently. I wasn't really asking anyone or talking to the teacher or anything of that sort. And then one day, one of my friends calls me and says, hey, have you done this Art of Living program? I said, yes, I just did it. And he said, why don't you come for a satsang? Satsang is just people coming together, singing some bhajans or devotional songs and just being in that space of vibrations, like strong vibrations. And after that, we would do the breathing practice together, right, with the group. It was amazing, to say the least, because I would go every single time, and there was so much stress built up in my system that I could feel that release happening literally every single time. And um, that's where, as part of those gatherings, I realized that, you know, to keep your experience of life at a peak, at an optimum, you need to give back as well. You're taking so much in the form of all the things that it gives us, including learning how to be happy. You have to give back on that. That's when the virtuous cycle starts, right? And once that virtuous cycle starts, it kind of gets inside of you in such a way that you start understanding the subtle aspect of life, right? So for me and Gurudev, the founder of the Art of Living Foundation, His Holiness Sri Ravi Shankar ji, when he said that make spirituality and service an integral part of life, and you'll see how different aspects of your life will blossom. Um, I started to see some aspects start to open up. For example, I used to be almost like an agnostic atheist type person, and I would like going to a temple, like the energy there, right? So, but then I wasn't like, oh, why do I pray to God? Like, what is God? Like, why these idols and all of that, right? And it's the mindset that is seeded by the education system that we had. That said, when I started to experience more than what I could fathom because of my spiritual experiences with Sudarshan Kriya and Sahaj Samadhi meditation, I started to see that there is more to life than what I've been told, whether it's instruction via school or just whatever my parents could give. So I started looking out for more experiences, right? So when the first service experience happened for me, it I had a sudden like epiphany. I was like, oh, this is a silent revolution. And it was a silent revolution for nobody else but me because it had changed my life in ways I couldn't even fathom. And the one thing that I could see that was markedly obvious, yet in the background, was that I had now started caring for somebody outside of just myself. See, most of our life we spend just thinking about my work, my school, my career, my kids or family, or my house, my car, everything about us. And so that is constantly, you're thinking about just one entity that is you and everything related to you, because everything related to you is somehow connected to your own happiness at a very superficial level, right? When you step out of that mode, where you start thinking about somebody else, you're helping somebody else, you're contributing to somebody else's life in a way that uplifts them, there's a shift that happens inside of your life, in your own inner core in some way. And that's when you start tapping into these other sources of energy. We talk about different sources of energy, right, in general, and how you get energy from doing various things that you like and things like that. Here, it was more like an experiment that showed to me without an iota of doubt that, this is where your life gets the most, the boost it needs, right? See, you everyone has ups and downs in their life, right?
Yeah.
But these ups and downs don't come just for nothing. They come because a set of your DNA is encoded in a certain way, and you have to go through things in a certain cadence, right? Ups will be there, downs will be there. But then how do you manage your mind so that you can get through those in a very smooth manner or in a very comfortable manner rather than getting tossed around all the time? The the key is to have a perspective, an attitude that allows you to rise above those things, seeing that those are important, yet not the most significant things in your life. And the most important thing is your own self and your own energy and your own sense of well-being. So when you keep that as the focus, then things start to unravel and you start realizing how to prioritize. And when service is prioritized to a certain level, it starts to make a small but significant impact in a very measured way. And as you continue doing that regularly, you'll start to see that it is slowly and but steadily transforming your life. And that was my experience. Slowly, I would say, hey, I don't want to do too much of this or more than like 5% of my life or whatever. But then slowly I realized that it was giving me a lot of energy as I would go out and do that service or help somebody or organize a program where people would benefit by experiencing the breathing practice and things like that. So hope that gave you, a sense of what, how service is playing a role.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, especially for me as well. I'm only 18, but when I was probably during COVID, as a young teenager, I was also dealing with anxiety and like depression and stuff. And I would totally agree that Sudarshan Kriya did help me kind of like come out of my comfort zone, and like it allowed me to also be engaged in a community, and also yeah, just listening to others people's stories of why they joined, it motivated me to kind of like pursue my dreams. So I have an aspiration to become like a doctor. So
Mhm.
I guess this podcast has been dedicated to people who maybe just try to find themselves in this
Mhm.
I guess gigantic world.
Oh, that's
um,
great. No, it's great to actually learn from other people's experiences. Gurudev says that two ways you learn. One is instruction, and the other is other people's experience, not just
yeah.
yours, right? So, yeah, it's a great initiative.
Yeah, and especially reflecting back on your journey, from India, and you mentioned all the competition and how
Hmm.
you took your first art of living course. Could you share another like personal or impactful story that inspired your involvement, especially in service and seva?
Yeah, I realized that, you know, and this is so common across the world. When you're growing up, it feels like life is so hard,
Yeah.
right? And especially as a student. So, as a student, you come to this country like the United States of America. It's a great country.
Hmm.
But then, you don't have everything. You have to kind of raise everything from the ground, right? So there's such a challenge and struggle, right, that people go through. And especially if your mental health is not taken care of, taking those challenges can be even more burdensome, right? Can be even more hard. You can go through a lot of depression and pain and suffering just because, you mentally weren't ready for it somehow, or that you were ready for it, but, challenges were just too big. It was too overwhelming sometimes.
Hmm.
Uh, it did happen to me as well. I was, I would say spoon-fed at home because I wasn't allowed to learn cooking. I wasn't allowed to like do laundry or anything of that sort. Like everything was done for me. All I had to do was study and sleep and eat. That's it, right? And enjoy television or whatever, right? And that's very typical of a lot of families in India. I wouldn't say it's a good or a bad thing. There are pros there, there's cons as well. But when you shift from that setup, that environment to this environment where, now you have to take responsibility for every single thing regarding yourself, then it becomes a little bit more challenging. And then the other side of it is that now you have to also build your career. You have to make everything, you have to shape your personality. You have to learn how to be emotionally resilient, learn how to take rejection and failures. uh, it takes a lot out of you, right? That's where breathing practices like Sudarshan Kriya help, and also having a focus on service helps tremendously. Like, especially in your young years, if you are engaged in any form of service, I would say it pays you multifold in your future years. The reason why I say that is that the first thing is that it keeps your youth alive, that enthusiasm and energy. Because the energy that you get from food and all the comforts and all of the things in life cannot be matched by the energy you get from making a difference in other people's lives, right? And time and again, I'm sure everyone has gone through this kind of thought process in their mind as to what is the purpose of my life, right?
Yes.
And Gurudev very playfully says you can start with saying what is not your purpose in life, right? Which is to say that it's not just eating, sleeping, dreaming, whatever, right? Not those mundane things. It's definitely something beyond all those things, of course. So I have personally not answered that question, but as I went into doing service, I started experiencing a new dimension in my life that helped me along that path of discovering who I am, what I really want to do, and there are some passions that just invoke in you and just tell you that, hey, this is exciting, this is great, this is energizing you, this is helping you, and maintaining a certain balance as well, right? So as you already know, your brain has two hemispheres, right? The right and the left. The right is for um, you know, emotions and creativity and art and things like that. And the left is mainly intellectual thinking, science, mathematics, and a lot of like analysis and things like that. So when you attend to the right brain kind of work, which is service and breathing and meditation and all of that, as well as art, that helps you to balance the two hemispheres. And many a time you'll see some people who are very either extreme on one side, where they are too, sarcastic or too kind of hard about life and very trying to be very realistic, quote unquote, right? And there are people on the other side who are like too flippant about life in the sense that, oh, everything's taken care of. Why should I care? Why should I worry? And just, be very careless about it. both things are not conducive to a well-made life, right? Well-made path. So you want to strike that middle path and you want to be in balance. And then when you want to have a broader vision and also deepen your roots. So I think that way, what I did when I was in my early years and actually organizing and helping facilitate programs for other college students, that enabled me to see how much people are going through. Like it was not just me, everyone else is going through the same journey. And that made me feel like, you know, I'm not the only one. And challenges are there everywhere, but I could see how people were able to overcome those challenges, how I was able to overcome those challenges just by just expanding my sense of self, right, with service and balancing my intellectual activity with service and self-care. And I think that made a huge difference.
Yeah, and I think especially with kind of like standards, set by society in a way. I know a bunch of especially like parents are very like strict and pressurize their children to achieve a certain amount of success. And
Mhm,
so I feel like once I was brought into this community for art of living, it was very open, very welcoming, and it's a totally different environment. So I'd say like especially living in America, it's like the land of opportunity. Like it's
mhm,
not set in stone. I think that's what I've as hearing from people from India and Asia, like basically other countries. It's always like, oh yeah, I crossed like 3 miles of hills and everything just to get to school. I'm like,
mhm.
okay, but I mean, as a kid here, I never really understood like what that really meant,
Yeah,
but now I realize like I feel like now that I'm an adult, as to say like it's like it's a big journey. Like I think
yeah.
like as you mentioned, like from moving from one place to another where you don't know anyone, where it's
Mhm,
like totally different and like dealing with all these pressures, I totally recommend like Sky Korea to be an effective tool for
mhm.
like just dealing with I guess daily pressures. So yeah, when reflecting on your work with Art of Living, what are some of the most formidable challenges you've encountered, and have you navigated through them?
There were many challenges. So I think when you are living your life without reflection, you're just going through it like an automaton, right? So there's a set of states and a set of transitions between those states, and that's it. That means nothing else can happen. And that's what I think happens in the case of people who commit suicide at a very early age. They don't find a path. There's no other state that they can go to by another state transition, and that's it. Life is has to end right here, right? The challenge for me was very, very personal. I had many inhibitions as well as uh, conceptions about how the world works, right? We all grow up like that, right? We have an idea of how things work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always easy to kind of reconcile those things. Sometimes you learn it the hard way, right? You're immature, you make statements, you say things, or you behave in a certain way that I wouldn't say is not appropriate, but doesn't show enough maturity. And that happens when you have sometimes when it's been very easy for you, and sometimes it's just that you're just naive. You just need to work with more and more people, do more and more service, learn more and more about people's lives and their experiences, empathize with those, and then move on and learn and even go through your own set. And you do that, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think just applying the knowledge, right? First of all, being with the knowledge, that is the first step, right? So, I mean, the average person, when they come to an art of living program and then they leave the class, they go with a sense of kind of, I would say, elation and happiness and joy and all of that. But the real joy happens when you actually take the knowledge that you've learned in the program and you apply it in your daily life, right? And there were times when I got upset, I was angry, I was unhappy, I was crying, I was doing all kinds of things, right? And that's where I realized, I have done this program and I've been told this is how it works. So let me see how we can apply. And over time, I realized there are three stages of knowledge acquisition, right? Wisdom acquisition, I would say. One is to listen about it, right? So if you heard about something and you've kind of internalized it to a certain extent while you're listening to it, that's one step. But then you have to listen to it again and again, and in different states of mind to be able to reckon with it and register it in your memory, right, in a deep way. The second step is to contemplate on it, which is to like really go deeper into that and apply it to different aspects of your life, right? And once you do that, that's when you start to see, hey, it does really help. And you may have nodded your head the first time you heard about it, but that internal nodding that happens once you see how it is universally applicable and how to kind of shift your attitude internally to align with that,
Mm-hmm.
that is an aha moment. That is what people call an aha moment, right? Which is when you start to kind of connect the knowledge that's out there and it now becomes wisdom inside of you, right? Now when it's inside of you as wisdom in a very reflex action sort of way, next step is just seeing it happen in action in your life without you even thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that process takes a lot out of you. It's not easy because you the knowledge combined with your own conceptions about the world may not always align, and you now have to figure out which one is right every single step. And it's happening in a very subtle way inside your mind. And then as and when this you start to learn more and more and you de-stress regularly, it starts to become clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stress actually hides those distinctions from your mind. It blurs those things, blurs many things, but blurs that distinction between what is truth, what is untruth, what is the right knowledge and what is not the right knowledge, right? And that's what leads to a lot of aberrations in society, right? Many times people just think that this is how it should be, like, oh, I should go and kill somebody just because he's not the right person, he's not living their life right way, he's not good for anybody or whatever. And that's just the wrong way of looking at it, right? So again, realigning your own internal compass to what the knowledge is, not by virtue of just an instruction as an indoctrination, but by virtue of application in real life. And then, so many such occurrences happened, and I learned to respect even an ant. Right? It does hard work. It shows by example that, hey, only hard work can get you there. And then there is so many different examples you see around, right? There's actually a Gita called the Avadut Gita. That's a very ancient scripture where the seeker is actually drawing knowledge from everything around him in the universe, right? And when that starts to happen to us, you know that you are in the right place, you're going the right path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think like especially like I'd say like just being close to, I guess, like in any religious text, it's always about, kind of like being a good person in society and really accepting like one another. So I'd say like there's been so many wars and conflicts just due to like race, religion, and gender. And I'd say like if people really do understand like respect is the main key to end everything, I'd say like I don't think it's truly gonna be resolved just by saying, "Oh, I respect you." But I'd say like, that's just like a basic understanding. Like,
Yeah.
there's like random like conflicts with due to just like people not understanding that their people's backgrounds and what they had to do to even like there's like conflicts here just in Bay Area or like
Mhm.
just across the US. I'd say yeah, it's it's a never ending conflict. And Yeah, just taking, really reflecting on your own beliefs and self would really help people. So, yeah, and I'd say what my next question is, what novel approaches has your service work embraced to confront complex social issues or adversities?
There's one initiative that I've recently kind of gotten engaged in, and I work with so many of my colleagues and friends in the Art of Living Foundation as well,
Mm-hmm.
and in my professional environment. I work at a high-tech company here in the Bay Area. So it's about caring for the environment. See, so is the microcosm as is the macrocosm, is what one of our most ancient scriptures say, yat pinde tat brahmande. So, however is your external environment, that will be your internal environment. And it's very scientific too, right? The food that is grown out there, and the conditions, the epigenetic factors that it is exposed to, the air, the water, the 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 pollution or lack of it, right? That contributes to how good that fruit is, right? And then that gets consumed by us, all humans, and then becomes part of us. So it's no different from us, but at the same time, it's also a reflection of what's being put out there. And you must have heard of so many examples of micro and nanoplastics ending up in human body, right? So that's a very clear, in your face example of how our lives are governed or will be in a huge way by how we interact with the environment. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been hearing about like climate change and all these solutions about climate change for a very, very long time. And I came across this one method of planting forests that um, one of my friends, very dear friend, Neelam Patil, who's also a great social entrepreneur, pioneered in the Berkeley schools and still doing in a big way, um, exemplified that. And then she shared it with a bunch of us at my workplace, and I was really inspired by that idea. And I did some more research around it, and I found that all the solutions that are out there, they're not enough. You can do so much, but real change can happen when everyone on earth is part of that change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, across the world, democracies happen when there was mass participation, there was mass kind of opinion about it, right? That's when it started happening. And to that end, I feel that climate change, even or just caring for the environment and to ease all the weather pressures that we feel literally every year, I think we need to start learning to care for not just the earth, but our entire universe, as our ecosystem that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, I learned that, hey, maybe what if this method of forestry is made easy for people to learn and do themselves, then that would be a great thing to do. I myself had never done it, so it's not like I'm an expert today. I have started and I have planted one forest in San Martin here in south of southern San Jose. But I think the key feature that I found about it that really appealed to me was that if I wanted to make a change by planting trees, how can I multiply the impact 30x? We all know that plants actually absorb the excess carbon in the atmosphere by way of photosynthesis, and more trees means more of that's happening, and it has a beneficial effect on the whole greenhouse gases, the effect of climate change that we observe, right?
Definitely,
To
yeah.
that end, I found that Miyawaki forestry actually does 30x
Wow.
the impact, right? So you plant a pocket of a mini forest that will 30x the capacity of that plot of land to absorb carbon. And think
Mm-hmm.
about that as like an energy vortex. Usually, an energy vortex is a place where you can draw lots of energy. But this
Mm-hmm.
is when it's like an oxygen vortex where you can draw lots of oxygen and it's pulling in a lot of carbon from the atmosphere. So the idea is not just to you know, plant as many yourself. No, it's to plant as many as you can and in the process inspire others to do the same,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is a cost aspect to it. which we're working very hard to actually figure out how it can be very simple, easy. In fact, get to zero cost Miyawaki forests, right? So
Mm.
if once that happens, and there's a principle, right? If you make something very easy for somebody to do and very, very impactful, they will do it, right? So that's what we're endeavoring to do. And we have succeeded to some extent, I would say. It's not completely zero cost, but it's come to a point where as much community and mass participation we can get, that much we can make it easier and simpler for everyone to do it. So when we did the first forest, I learned how to use a earth moving equipment like backhoe. I don't know if you know, it has like a front kind of a bucket, and then there's like a wider bucket in the back which can scoop up a lot of soil. And I learned how to like prepare the site and all of that. It was an adventure of its own. And then now we're planting another one next weekend. So all of you are invited to come. It's happening in Morgan Hill, and you can get my coordinates from Vaishali. But the whole idea here is that as many people come and be part of contributing to the earth, there is a strong sense of connectedness to Mother Earth, right?
Mm.
That's when you feel part of the solution rather than sitting in your home in a nice plush chair and just speaking wax eloquent about how one can do things without doing anything,
Yeah,
right? So you be part of the solution, and then you go out, spread the idea to a lot many people. Just do it, right? Do it. Doing is more powerful than just talking about anything, right? So that's what I learned, and that's what I endeavor to kind of share with everyone. And the more, more people I meet, they are like telling me, "Hey, I have this piece of land. Why don't you grow Miyawaki forest here, there?" And I'm like, why don't you take it up and just do it? I'll help you, right? So that's where we are at. Like, we have no dearth of land to plant Miyawaki forests. We probably don't have bandwidth to do all of them, but we'll do definitely get to all of them. And my goal is to keep myself busy with that outside of teaching art of living courses and doing other forms of service work as well. Um, and of course doing my day job. Uh, but if I can inspire more groups, more teams, more people in different cities, different institutions, different people from different backgrounds, because you look at every tradition in the world, they have care for the environment encoded in their teachings,
definitely.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so universal as a concept. So there's no bar that will prevent you from participating in something like this. You can go out there, make change happen yourself. And to that end, I've learned so much about leadership. I've learned so much about keeping people together, moving as one team on a shared vision, building a shared vision, bringing people together towards a common goal, inspiring people, learning from people. I learn every single day. I have seen so many good ideas come, and we just don't have. I could just basically leave my job and do something, do only this, and then it still won't be enough, right? So again, but then we have to balance everything. So we're doing whatever we can to share and spread the word, and just and have the firm faith that one day the tide will turn. People will realize that I have to be part of the solution, and they'll join in.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, that's amazing that you're planting trees. Yeah, I was actually also a Boy Scout, sort of, Boy Scout troop for girls in high school. We
Mhm.
also planted trees around the neighborhood too. So I'd
Wow.
say I totally agree. Coming together, it was basically we were like 30, 40 people together, and we used to just come and, just take out the weeds, put on, like, plant the trees and just like basically change the park's environment. And I'd say once you like do plant trees, you're not only contributing to um like the landscape, but and the as you mentioned, the oxygen and emissions, you're also contributing to a new like life. Like there's so much nature out there. There's other like organisms that are nearby, and they can reproduce and contribute to the environment
Yeah.
as well. And there's also, life cycles. There's birds. There's all these kind of little, as you mentioned, the life of an ant.
Hmm.
People try to like I'd say in the little bugs. Some people are scared of them, but I'd say, they're there. They're little creatures in the environment. And so I'd say, especially as a teenager, instead of just playing video games or, just sitting at home, yeah, just try to be out there and help as much as you can. And not just for the resume, but actually for a purpose. I'd say like a lot of people are putting like so much stress into just building this like high professional resume, whether it be like for college, for a job or anything. But I'd say like the key isn't to do just accomplish a lot. It's to actually have a purpose. And I'd say doing Seva is such a good purpose. And as you mentioned, you can build teamwork skills, leadership, and it doesn't have to be like with such a high sufficient like proficient goal, I'd say, in the front start. Like just starting off, like I started this podcast like probably like 2 years ago. It was actually my nonprofit, which was supposed to help foster care centers.
Hmm.
It was just like five of us. It was me and my friend group, and we just went around, held donations and fundraisers in our community, and yeah, we donated um, like school supplies and shirts, pants, just like anything they wanted. So I'd say, it doesn't hurt to just ask people, for help if they need help. And, you know, it really does help one who may be struggling with, some sort of, isolation, or
Hmm.
I'd say like some sort of like illness that they may be dealing with. I'd say, it really does help, like, if you just be the first person to ask others
Totally.
what they're dealing with. So I'd say, like, yeah. So drawing from your own journey, what insights or pearls of wisdom would you impart to individuals embarking on similar paths in service or leadership?
Yeah, so that's a very beautiful question. There are a few things I noted in my past few days that as I was reflecting on the past year, right, till the new year came about. Um, and, and there are some very basic things that may sound very naive or like very obvious. Um, but one thing I learned was don't be stuck in life. Wise are those who are not stuck. Very enlightened master said that. Sorry about that. Long time ago. And it struck me back then. And from time to time, I go back to it and I just look at, hey, what am I stuck in life with? And I just drop it because nothing in life is worth crying over so much, right? Whatever is yours will come to you. We always have these ambitions and goals and all of that, right? And not everything will pan out the way you think it should. But whatever happens to you will be the best for you, right? That's the way to look at it. And so if you have that attitude of not getting stuck, then it gives you so much freedom. And freedom is what enables you to take those big quantum leaps that you want to take in your life. It doesn't have to be just career. It can be professional, it can be personal, it can be like in your little circle, it can be across vast swaths of people, including societies and civilizations and countries and whatnot. Thinking broad, thinking open, thinking universal is how you get to bring about change. Think about people like Elon Musk. He thinks very, very hard and very, very strongly about humanity, right? I'm not saying all of his opinions are great. I like some things, and that's why I appreciate them. But at the same time, look at how hard he's been thinking about solving the problem with climate change. He's pioneered electric cars, right, in our generation. He has pioneered space reuse, space vehicle reuse, how to make space affordable for people, right? How can you get to build the next generation of spacefaring citizens, right? Think about that because our Earth is not enough. If you take a simple, what is it called? The ecological quiz, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
quiz on how many Earths does it take to sustain your lifestyle, you'll realize that it's never less than two or three, right? It's always more than one. And so the way we are utilizing the Mother Earth, it's not going to be enough. And I'm not just saying it from a very high, broad level perspective. I'm talking about a very practical perspective, right? You have to think about the broad problems that humanity faces and learn from first principles and not be stuck. You know, you may encounter several challenges, but just like water flows on a brook, striking stone and just lashing and just moving past that and then keeps moving down, you just have to keep moving. And
Mm-hmm.
you will find the goal that you're looking for if you keep working at it, right? So that's one. The other thing I realize is super, super important to balance personal ambition with societal, uh, you know, with service in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the more you give, the more you get in life. But you also have to work towards your own goals. So you have to balance that with giving to society. I think those are two very important tracks that go together, right? Uh, and the last one I would say is that the universe is filled with love. You have to realize that. Everyone does whatever they do because they love something.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a very dark, very dangerous thing that they love,
Yeah.
but unless and until we bring that knowledge of the one true love to people, you know, it's not going to be enough. You have to go out there, educate people. You were mentioning just, in the previous conversation about, people not having that awareness, right? They're just fighting on about something. And, you know, that's where our job is to go out there and educate people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just be that example and educate people about how they could be better people in the first place. Take care of their own mind, take responsibility of how they feel, and not blame it on other people, right?
Yeah.
And there are various layers of truth. To a certain extent, you will be able to help that. You can become a good example and inspire others to do that. At another level, you know, you have to just let go. So you make the effort and you just let go. And that's what the essence of the Bhagavad Gita is, right? You do your action and you drop the expectation of the result or the fruit, right? You say, okay, whatever happens, happens. I'll just put my action and just smile and just let go. And that allows you to be in that space of, not being stuck, just flowing through, right? So I think those are a few things I've learned, and there could be more, but that could be another conversation altogether.
Yeah, I think yeah, as you mentioned, I think like dharma and then karma, like my dad's always like follow your dharma, do your
Hmm.
duty to, like whatever my parents tell me to do, be a good daughter, do well in education and all that. And then there's karma, like every action we do has a consequence. So,
Hmm.
whether, like I'd say like keeping this in mind, but also like as you mentioned, the awareness. I'd say there's many people, especially in underserved communities, where it's pretty common for them to deal with um, like a lot of I'd say like a lot of like drugs and like a lot of like substance abuse cases, and that could be a very scary neighborhood, especially. So I've heard a lot of stories about that. So I'd say like when we do raise awareness, like especially stepping out of our zone from our comfortable and safe areas to maybe try and like kind of like face these situations in a way where we could help someone. I'd say, like, as people, like, we tend to ignore a lot of scenarios happening, and we're like, oh yeah, it doesn't affect me. Like, I'd say then the situation gets ignored a lot, and it's like, like as I know like in school we're taught like being an upstander. That's just for bullying, but I'd say this also is effective for climate change as well, and on a lot of different issues that are coming up, especially with the recent election results. So I'd say as community members, not just in the U.S. but anywhere. It's better to be really like, to establish a supportive community. We need to really learn how to preserve our nature, and also learn the and respect to keep each other safe, and I'd say welcoming.
Yeah, totally. When I started planting these forests and started looking into the different kinds of native plants that we would be growing, I truly started looking at diversity. Like, you think diversity is just many different kinds of colors of flowers and things like that, and that's just like an artifact of your background in some way. That's
Yeah.
not the case. You start looking at how they grow, how they kind of blossom, how they root, how they spread networks and become families under the ground, like form mycorrhizal networks. You are just in awe, and it is like the most humbling experience you can ever get. And you have a deep respect then for plants, and then, you know, and become true stewards of Mother Earth. And I think that goes, the credit for it entirely goes to Gurudev, Sri Sri Ravi Shankarji, who's the founder of the Art of Living. He
Yeah.
inspired, first of all, service, taking care of yourself, and then taking care of your environment. I think all those three things have inculcated in me because primarily of him. And, and that's when I was able to kind of look at it that way, and appreciate the true diversity of in a proper sense, and then be very authentic, right, about it.
Yeah, and I think for me too, I think I took a few silence courses, and especially when you're in person,
Mhm.
you're really kind of like in this zone where it's like you're kind of like vulnerable to everything around you because you can't speak, right?
Yeah,
Everything's going on and inside of you, and once you step out into nature, you are so like prone to seeing the smallest details which you didn't see before, because you
yeah,
pay attention to like the littlest
yeah,
detail on a flower, or the birds chirping around you.
yeah,
And with their busy lives every day, just going to work, coming back home, it's like, okay, we see it every day, but we don't even notice like what's happening around us. It's like
yeah,
we have calls like from like 9 to whatever, like 10 p.m., and it's like, it can be really overwhelming. So I'd say, just like taking just a moment and breathing. I'd say like that's a big thing that I learned through Art of Living.
yeah. And
Being
it's
present in the
you're
moment.
you're such an inspiration. No, at your age, I hadn't even heard about Art of Living. So you're in such a advantageous position. You've taken few silence courses already, so you've experienced that depth of clarity in your mind. It's going to help you tremendously going forward. So all the good wishes and vibes for you, uh,
Thank you.
for your onward journey. And it's truly inspiring to see a young person like you taking the initiative to learn from other people's experiences. And I'm pretty sure this is hugely rewarding for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to like, just kind of like hear people and also get involved in different, I guess, organizations. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for being here today. Yeah, I loved learning about your journey.
Mhm. Yeah, same here.